The massive space station called Harmony's Edge floated in the darkness around Viridian Prime like a metal moon. Ships from 12 different worlds docked at its many ports. Each ship looked different from the others. Some were long and thin like metal snakes. Others were round like giant balls. The human ship was small and gray, nothing special to look at. Inside the station, aliens of many kinds walked through the wide halls. The Krathen looked like walking lizards with thick armor on their skin. They made clicking sounds when they talked. The Villani were tall and thin with big eyes that never seemed to blink. They carried small computers everywhere they went. The Nexari had 4 arms and loved to trade anything with anyone. The Elderkin were the oldest race in the galaxy. They moved slowly and spoke even slower. Ambassador Lee Dae-ho walked through these halls with his aide Park Soo-jin beside him. Lee was a man of average height with kind eyes and graying hair. He wore a simple dark blue uniform with Earth symbol on it. Soo-jin carried a small bag with all their papers and notes. She was younger than Lee and always looked worried about something. "Sir, are you ready for this?" Soo-jin asked as they walked toward the main meeting hall. Lee nodded but said nothing. He had been thinking about this day for months. Earth had only been part of the Galactic Council for 50 years. Most aliens still saw humans as the new kids who did not know much about space politics. The meeting hall was huge. It could hold thousands of beings. The ceiling was so high that small clouds formed near the top. In the center was a speaking area where each race would present their ideas. Around it, the 12 races sat in their own sections. Each section was built to make that race comfortable. The Krathen section had hot air and bright red lights. The Villani section was cool and blue. The Nexari had many small tables covered with food and drinks. The human section was simple with normal Earth chairs and white lights. Lee and Soo-jin took their seats. Around them sat other humans from Earth's government. There was Captain Kim Tae-won from Earth's Space Navy. He was a big man with scars on his hands from old battles. There was also Dr. Han Min-seo, a woman who studied old alien ruins and knew more about galactic history than most aliens did. The meeting began when an old elderkin named Ancient Mordun stood up. His voice was deep and slow, like distant thunder. "Friends of many worlds," he said. "We meet today because of great danger. The void swarm has come to our galaxy. 3 of our outer worlds are gone. Millions of beings are dead. We must decide what to do." The hall became very quiet. Everyone knew about the void swarm. It had appeared 6 months ago at the edge of the galaxy. Nobody knew where it came from. It attacked planets and took everything. After it left, there was nothing. No buildings, no plants, no people. Just empty rock floating in space. High Commander Vextal of the Krathen stood up next. He was bigger than most Krathen and had many scars on his armor. "We should fight," he said, hitting his chest with his fist. "The Krathen have strong warriors and good weapons. We can destroy this enemy." Many Krathen in the hall made loud clicking sounds to show they agreed, but most other aliens looked scared or worried. A Villani scientist named Dr. Kelnara stood up. She was very tall and her big eyes looked sad. "Violence is not the answer," she said in her quiet voice. "We must study this swarm. Maybe we can talk to it, maybe we can understand what it wants." She showed pictures on a big screen. The pictures showed the destroyed planets. "See how it takes only certain things," she said. "It leaves some metals, but takes others. This means it thinks things that think can be reasoned with." The Nexari trade leader, Broker Zimpak, waved all 4 of his arms. "Trade is the answer," he said. "Everything wants something. We find out what the swarm wants, and we trade for peace. Everyone wins." One by one, leaders from different races stood up to speak. The Hilani suggested hiding on distant worlds until the swarm left. The Korthak wanted to build giant walls around important planets. The Solani thought they should pray to their gods for help. Lee listened to all of them. He watched how they spoke and what they suggested. Most ideas were about running away, hiding, or trying to make friends with the enemy. A few races wanted to fight, but even they did not seem to really understand what they were facing. Hours passed. The aliens talked and argued. They showed charts and pictures. They made long speeches about peace and wisdom. But Lee could see that nobody had a real plan. They were all scared, and scared people do not make good choices. Sujin leaned over to Lee. "Sir, they want humans to speak now." Lee looked around the hall. Hundreds of alien eyes were looking at him. Some looked curious. Others looked like they thought humans were too young and stupid to have good ideas. A few looked hopeful, like maybe Earth would have an answer nobody else could think of. Lee stood up slowly. The hall became quiet. His footsteps echoed as he walked to the center speaking area. Captain Kim gave him a small nod. Dr. Han looked nervous but tried to smile. When Lee reached the speaking area, he turned to face the entire hall. He could see every race represented in the Galactic Council. These were the smartest, oldest, and most powerful beings in the galaxy. They had built great civilizations among the stars. They had made peace between races that used to fight. They had created wonderful art, music, and science, but now they were afraid, and fear was making them weak. Lee began to speak. His voice was not as deep as the Elderkin or as loud as the Krathen, but it carried clearly through the hall. "Honored friends," he said. "I have listened to your words today. I hear great wisdom. I hear the voices of races that have lived among the stars for thousands of years. You have built something beautiful here, a place where different beings can work together in peace." He paused and looked around the hall. Some aliens nodded. They liked hearing good things about themselves. "But I also hear fear," Lee continued, "and I understand that fear. What faces us is terrible. The Void Swarm has destroyed 3 worlds in 6 months. It kills everything it touches. This is scary for anyone." The hall was very quiet now. Even the Krathen had stopped their clicking sounds. Lee's voice became stronger. "My people, the humans of Earth, are new here. We have been part of this council for only 50 years. Many of you see us as children who do not understand the big picture. Maybe you are right about some things. We are young compared to races like the Elderkin. We have not built cities that float in space, or ships that can cross the galaxy in days." He looked directly at the Elderkin section. "But there is one thing humans understand very well. We understand what it means to face an enemy that wants to destroy everything you care about. We know what it means to fight for the right to exist." Some aliens shifted in their seats. They had heard stories about Earth's violent history. Most space-traveling races had given up major wars long ago, but humans had fought terrible wars right up until they reached the stars. "On Earth, we have a saying," Lee said. "Those who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it. We have studied the Void Swarm. We have looked at what it did to those 3 worlds, and we have compared it to our own history." He gestured toward Sujin, who activated a small device. Pictures appeared on the big screen. They showed the destroyed planets, but also images from Earth's past. Burned cities, empty battlefields, places where terrible wars had been fought. "This is not random destruction," Lee said. "This is not a natural disaster. This is war. Total war. The kind of war where one side tries to make the other side disappear completely." The hall erupted into noise. Aliens started talking to each other in their own languages. Some sounded angry. Others sounded worried. The Krathen were clicking loudly. The Villani were making soft humming sounds. Ancient Morden raised one ancient hand. The hall became quiet again. "Young human," the old Elderkin said, "you speak of war as if you know it well. But war brings only pain and death. Surely there must be another way." Lee looked at the ancient being with respect. "Honored ancient, you are right that war brings pain and death. My people know this better than most. But sometimes the only way to stop greater pain and death is to fight. Sometimes the only way to save what you love is to destroy what threatens it." He turned to face the entire hall again. "The swarm is not here to trade with us. It is not here to talk. It is not here to take some things and leave others. It is here to take everything. Every planet, every life, every trace that we ever existed." The pictures on the screen changed. Now they showed detailed images of the destroyed worlds. Dr. Han had spent weeks studying these images. Look closely, Lee said. The swarm did not just take resources. It did not just kill people. It erased them. No bodies, no buildings, no art, no history. Nothing left to show that millions of beings once lived and loved and built families on eyes and dear these worlds. Silence fell over the hall. Even the youngest aliens could understand what total erasure meant. Lee's voice became quiet but firm. Honored leaders, I do not want war. No human wants war. We remember what it costs. But I also remember what happens when good people do nothing while evil destroys everything they care about. He looked around the hall one more time. The time has come to decide. Will we run and hide, hoping the swarm will get bored and leave? Will we try to negotiate with something that wants us all dead? Or will we stand together and fight for our right to exist? The meeting hall buzzed with quiet conversations after Lee sat down. Aliens whispered to each other in their own languages. The Krathen were arguing among themselves with low clicking sounds. The Villani were sharing data on their small computers. Everyone seemed confused about what the human had just said. Ancient Morden stood up again. His old voice filled the hall. The human speaks strongly about war and fighting. But we are civilized beings. We solve problems with wisdom and patience, not violence. Perhaps Ambassador Lee can explain why Earth thinks differently than the rest of us. Lee stood up again, but this time he stayed in his section. Honored Ancient, you ask a fair question. Let me tell you something that might help you understand. He gestured to Su-Jin, who began working on her computer. New pictures appeared on the big screen. These showed star charts and deep space monitoring stations that looked like small metal boxes floating between stars. For the past 2 years, Earth has been watching the edges of our galaxy very carefully. We built monitoring stations in empty space, far from any planets. These stations just listen and watch. They record everything that happens in deep space. The pictures changed to show data streams and radio signals. Most aliens in the hall had never seen anything like this before. What we found scared us, Lee continued. The Void Swarm did not just appear 6 months ago when it attacked our outer worlds. It has been in our galaxy for almost 3 years. It was watching us, learning about us, studying how we react to threats. A Villani scientist named Dr. Kelnara stood up. That is impossible. Our own deep space sensors would have detected something that large. Lee nodded to her respectfully. Your sensors are very good, Dr. Kelnara, but they were designed to find normal spaceships and natural events like exploding stars. The swarm hides itself differently. The screen showed new images. These were harder to understand, but they showed empty areas of space that seemed to bend light in strange ways. The swarm can make itself nearly invisible, Lee explained. It uses technology that bends space around its ships. Your sensors see empty space because that is what the swarm wants you to see. High Commander Vextal hit his chest with his fist. If this is true, why did Earth not tell us sooner? Why keep this secret? Lee looked directly at the Krathen leader. Because we were not sure what we were seeing at first, and because we needed to learn more before we could help. He signaled to Su-Jin again. The screen now showed a detailed map of their galaxy. Red dots marked where the swarm had been spotted over the past 3 years. The swarm has been moving through our galaxy very carefully. It avoided all major trade routes and populated systems. It stayed in empty areas where nobody goes. But it was always watching our planets and learning about our defenses. Dr. Kelnara looked at the data on the screen. Her big eyes grew even bigger. This movement pattern, it is like how a predator studies its prey before attacking. Exactly, Lee said. The 3 worlds that were destroyed were not random targets. They were tests. The swarm wanted to see how fast we could respond to attacks. It wanted to know what weapons we would use and how our different races would work together in a crisis. Broker. Zimpak waved his forearms nervously. But if the swarm was studying us, maybe it wants to learn our languages so it can talk to us. Lee shook his head sadly. I wish that were true, Broker Zimpak. But we found something else. Something much worse. The screen changed again. Now it showed pictures of space that looked completely empty. but there were numbers and measurements around the edges of each picture. "These are areas where civilizations used to exist," Lee said quietly. "Not in our galaxy, but in nearby galaxies that we can see with our best telescopes." Dr. Han Min Seo stood up for the first time. She was a small woman with thick glasses and gray hair. "I have been studying these areas for 15 years, she said. "At first I thought they were just empty regions of space, but when we improved our telescopes we found something terrible." She pointed to the screen. "These empty areas are not natural. They are places where star systems used to exist. Planets, stars, space stations, everything. But now there is nothing, not even the basic elements that stars are made of." The hall became very quiet. Even the smallest sounds seemed loud. Dr. Han continued. "We found 17 different areas like this. Each one used to be home to a great civilization. We can still detect some of their old radio signals traveling through space. These were advanced races that built cities among the stars and had technology as good as ours." "What happened to them?" asked Ancient Morden. "The same thing that happened to our 3 outer worlds," Dr. Han said, "but much worse. The swarm did not just destroy these civilizations, it consumed them completely. It took every atom, every molecule, everything. It left nothing behind except empty space." Captain Kim Tae-won stood up. He was a big man with short gray hair and scars on his hands from old battles. "This is why Earth has been preparing," he said in a deep voice. "We have seen what the swarm does to civilizations that are not ready to fight." "Preparing how?" asked High Commander Vextal. Captain Kim looked at Lee, who nodded. "Show them," Lee said. Kim activated his own computer device. The big screen filled with images of spaceships that looked different from anything the aliens had ever seen. They were black and covered with strange angles that seemed to bend light around them. "For the past 2 years, Earth has been building a military fleet in secret," Kim said. "These ships use technology that we developed specifically to fight the Void Swarm." The aliens stared at the screen in shock. The human ships looked deadly and advanced. There were hundreds of them in the pictures. "This is why we kept quiet about what we found," Lee explained. "We needed time to prepare. We knew that when the swarm finally revealed itself, the galaxy would need someone ready to fight." Dr. Kelnara stood up again. "But humans are supposed to be a peaceful race. You joined our council as explorers and traders, not warriors." Lee smiled sadly. "Dr. Kelnara, humans can be peaceful. We want to be peaceful. But we learned something important during our history on Earth. Sometimes, the only way to keep peace is to be ready for war." He walked back to the center speaking area. "Let me tell you about human history. For thousands of years, my people fought terrible wars on our home planet. We nearly destroyed ourselves several times. We learned that there are 2 kinds of beings in the universe: those who want to build and create and those who want to destroy and consume." The screen showed images from Earth's history: ancient battles, world wars, cities being rebuilt after destruction. We learned that builders and creators cannot ignore destroyers and hope they will go away. Evil does not stop itself. It only stops when good people are willing to fight against it. Ancient Morden raised his hand. "Young human, your words are strong, but you speak of your own species fighting each other. This swarm is different. It comes from outside our galaxy. Maybe it can be reasoned with." Lee turned to face the ancient Elderkin. "Honored Ancient, I understand why you think that. Your race has lived in peace for thousands of years. You have forgotten what it looks like when something truly evil comes, to destroy everything you care about." He gestured to the images on the screen. "But look at what the swarm has done. Look at those 17 dead civilizations. Do you think they did not try to negotiate? Do you think they did not offer to share resources or find peaceful solutions?" The hall was silent except for the soft humming of the station's air systems. "The swarm has had thousands of years to study different civilizations," Lee continued. "It knows all the ways that peaceful races try to solve problems. It knows about negotiation, trade, compromise, and diplomacy, and it has learned how to defeat all of those approaches." Lee looked around the hall at all the different races. This is what humans learned during our violent history. When someone wants to destroy you completely, talking will not save you. Hiding will not save you. Running away will only delay your destruction. So what will save us? Asked Broker Zimpak. Lee's voice became very serious. The only thing that stops a destroyer is someone willing to destroy them first. The only thing that stops total war is total victory. High Commander Vexital made loud, clicking sounds of approval. The human speaks truth. Warriors understand this, but Dr. Kelnara looked worried. If we fight a war like this, millions of beings will die. Maybe billions. Lee nodded sadly. You are right, Dr. Kelnara. War always costs lives. But if we do not fight, everyone dies. Every being in this galaxy, every planet, every trace that we ever existed. He pointed to the images of empty space where civilizations used to be. Those 17 civilizations probably had billions of beings too. They probably had families and children and dreams for the future. But they are all gone now because they were not ready to fight when the time came. Captain Kim stepped forward. Earth is offering to lead this fight. We have the ships, the weapons, and the experience, but we cannot do it alone. We need the resources and knowledge of all our races working together. What kind of war are you proposing? Asked Ancient Morden. Lee took a deep breath. Total war, complete commitment. We fight the swarm with everything we have until either they are destroyed or we are. The hall erupted into noise. Aliens started talking loudly to each other. Some sounded angry, others sounded scared. The next morning, Lee woke up early in his quarters on Harmony's Edge. He could not sleep well because his mind was full of plans and worries. Today would be the most important day in galactic history. Today, the races would either come together to fight the swarm, or the galaxy would split apart just when it needed to be strongest. Sujin knocked on his door with breakfast and reports from Earth. Sir, Admiral Park Jinwoo is ready to brief the Council about our military capabilities. General Oseo Jun has prepared information about ground combat operations, and Command wants to know if you need anything else. Lee ate his simple breakfast while reading the reports. Earth's military had been preparing for this moment for 2 years, but they had never expected to lead a galactic war. The responsibility felt heavier than anything he had ever carried before. What is the mood among the alien delegations? Lee asked. Sujin checked her notes. Mixed, sir. The Krathen are excited and already talking about honor in battle. The Villani are running calculations and asking for technical specifications. The Nexari are concerned about the economic costs. The Elderkin seem worried, but determined. Lee nodded. And the races that chose evacuation? They are still here, sir. I think they want to hear more details before they make their final decisions. An hour later, Lee walked into the Great Hall again. It looked different today. Instead of the formal seating arrangements from yesterday, the aliens had reorganized themselves. The races supporting the war sat closer together. The races choosing evacuation sat in a separate group. The 2 races wanting to hide sat by themselves looking uncomfortable. Ancient Morden called the meeting to order. Today we will hear the details of Earth's military plan. If we are to risk everything on human leadership, we must know exactly what we are agreeing to. Lee stood up and walked to the speaking area. This time he was not alone. Captain Kim, Dr. Han, and 3 other humans joined him. They all wore military uniforms instead of diplomatic clothing. Honored leaders, Lee began. Yesterday I told you that Earth has been preparing for this war. Today I will show you exactly what that preparation means. He nodded to Captain Kim, who activated a large holographic projector. The entire center of the hall filled with a 3-dimensional image of their galaxy. Thousands of tiny lights showed the locations of planets, space stations, and trade routes. This is our galaxy as we know it today, Captain Kim explained in his deep voice. 160 billion stars, 12 major civilizations, thousands of smaller colonies and outposts, all of it threatened by the Void Swarm. The image changed. New lights appeared showing the positions of human monitoring stations scattered throughout the galaxy. There were hundreds of them, including many in places where the aliens had no idea humans had been operating. Dr. Kelnara stood up, looking shocked. Those monitoring stations, some of them are in our territory. How did you place them there without our knowledge? Captain Kim looked embarrassed. We asked for permission to conduct deep space research. We did not lie about what we were doing, but we did not explain why we were doing it. Several aliens started making angry sounds, but Lee raised his hand. I know this looks like spying, and I apologize for the secrecy. But we needed to monitor the entire galaxy to track the swarm's movements. If we had explained our fears 2 years ago, would you have believed us? Ancient Morden considered this. Probably not. We would have thought humans were being paranoid, because of your violent history. Exactly, Lee said. So we gathered the proof first, then brought it to you. The holographic display changed again. Now it showed the secret locations of Earth's military fleet. The aliens gasped when they saw how many ships were hidden throughout the galaxy. We have 800 combat vessels ready for immediate deployment, Captain Kim announced. Each ship is specifically designed to fight the Void Swarm. We also have supply bases, repair facilities, and command centers positioned strategically throughout the galaxy. High Commander Vextal made approving clicking sounds. This is impressive preparation, but 800 ships cannot defend the entire galaxy. A new human stepped forward. Lee introduced her as General Yu Ji-hee, commander of Earth's military planning division. She was a small woman with short black hair and eyes that seemed to see everything. Commander Vextal is correct, General Yu said. 800 ships cannot defend everything. But they can do something much more important. They can attack. The holographic display showed new information. Red areas marked where the swarm was believed to be located. Blue lines showed planned attack routes for the human fleet. The galaxy has been thinking about this problem the wrong way, General Yu explained. Everyone wants to defend their homeworlds and important planets, but defense against the swarm is impossible. It is too large, too mobile, and too destructive. She pointed to the red areas on the display. The only way to stop the swarm is to attack it before it can attack us. We must hurt it so badly that it decides to leave our galaxy alone. Dr. Kelnara looked at the battle plans with her big eyes. This strategy assumes the swarm can feel pain or fear. What if it cannot? What if it will keep attacking no matter how much damage we do to it? Another human stepped forward. Lee introduced him as Commander Nam Dong-hyun, leader of Earth's intelligence operations. He was a quiet man who seemed to blend into the background until he spoke. Dr. Kelnara asks an important question, Commander Nam said. We have been studying the swarm's behavior for 2 years and we believe it can be deterred. The display showed detailed analysis of the 3 worlds the swarm had destroyed. Look at how the swarm attacked these planets. It was careful and methodical. It tested the defenses first. It withdrew when the local fleets responded too quickly. He highlighted specific battle data. This is not the behavior of a mindless destroyer. This is the behavior of an intelligent predator that wants to minimize its own losses. What does that mean for our strategy? Asked Broker Zimpak. General Yu answered. It means that if we can inflict serious damage on the swarm, it will probably retreat and look for easier targets in other galaxies. Probably? Ancient Morden emphasized the word. War always involves uncertainty, Honored Ancient, Lee said. But this strategy gives us the best chance of success. A new voice spoke from the human section. May I add something? Lee looked surprised. Dr. Shin Yunji was supposed to stay quiet during this briefing, but she was standing up with a determined expression on her face. She was Earth's chief weapons scientist, and Lee had hoped to keep her involvement secret, for now. Dr. Shin, this is not the planned presentation, Lee said quietly. I know, sir, but I think the Council needs to know about Project Starfall. Several humans looked worried, but Lee nodded. If they were going to lead a galactic war, the upper aliens deserved to know about their most powerful weapons. Dr. Shin walked to the center area. She was young for a scientist with long black hair and hands that were always moving as she talked. I have spent 3 years developing weapons specifically designed to kill the Void Swarm. The holographic display changed to show technical, diagrams that few aliens could understand. But the scale of the weapons was clear to everyone. The swarm's ships are protected by energy fields that make them nearly indestructible, Dr. Shin explained. Conventional weapons cannot penetrate these fields, but we have found a way to disrupt the quantum foundations that hold the fields together. She gestured to the diagrams. When a starfall weapon hits a swarm ship, it does not just destroy the ship. It causes a cascade reaction that can destroy multiple ships in the same area. High Commander Vextal leaned forward. How many ships can one weapon destroy? Dr. Shin looked uncomfortable. In our computer simulations, a single starfall torpedo can destroy between 50 and 200 swarm vessels, depending on how closely they are grouped together. The hall became completely silent. Even the background humming of the station system seemed loud. Dr. Kelnara stood up slowly. Are you saying that humans have developed weapons capable of destroying entire fleets? With single shots? Yes, Dr. Shin said simply. How many of these weapons do you have? Dr. Shin looked at Lee, who nodded grimly. We have manufactured 1,000 starfall torpedoes. Each of our 800 ships carries at least one. Some carry more. Ancient. Morden's ancient voice was very quiet. These weapons could destroy our fleets as easily as they destroy the swarm. Yes, Lee admitted. That is why we kept them secret. We knew that if other races learned about starfall weapons, they would be afraid of us instead of trusting us. Broker Zimpak waved his forearms nervously. But now we know. Now we are afraid. Lee walked to the center of the speaking area. You should be afraid. These weapons are terrifying. But ask yourself this. Would you rather have them used to protect the galaxy, or not have them at all when the swarm arrives in full force? Commander Nam stepped forward. There is something else the Council should know. Our intelligence suggests that the swarm's main fleet will arrive in this galaxy within 6 months. The attacks on our outer worlds were just the beginning. He changed the holographic display to show new data. We estimate that the full swarm contains over 10,000 vessels, each one capable of destroying a planet. The aliens stared at the numbers in horror. Dr. Kelnara's big eyes were wider than ever. The debate in the Great Hall continued for hours. Each race held private meetings in their own sections while the main session was paused. Lee could see aliens gesturing and arguing with each other. The Villani were showing each other calculations on their computers. The Krathan were having loud discussions that sounded like controlled arguments. The Nixari were trading information back and forth like they were making deals. Lee sat quietly with the other humans. Captain Kim looked tense, ready for a fight. Dr. Han was reviewing her data about the destroyed civilizations. Su Jin kept checking her notes and looking worried. Sir, Su Jin whispered to Lee, what if they say no? What if they decide that Earth is too dangerous to lead a war? Lee watched the aliens arguing in their sections. Then we fight alone, he said quietly, and hope we are strong enough to protect them anyway. After 3 hours, Ancient Mordun called for order. The aliens returned to their seats and the hall became quiet again. The Council has heard Earth's proposal, the old Elderkin said. Now each race will give their official response. The Hilani spoke first. Their representative was a tall, thin being with silver skin. The Hilani choose evacuation. We will move our people to distant galaxies until this threat passes. Several other races nodded in agreement. The Korthak and 2 smaller races also chose evacuation. Dr. Kelnara stood up for the Villani. We have calculated the probability of success for both approaches. Evacuation has a 67% chance of saving most of our population. The human war plan has only a 43% chance of success. She paused and looked at Lee. However, if the war plan fails, we all die. If evacuation fails, we also all die. The Villani choose to support Earth's war because it is the only plan that offers a chance to save our home worlds. High Commander Vextal stood up and roared. The Krathan choose war. We will fight beside Earth. Broker Zimpak waved his forearms. The Nexari have traded with humans for 50 years. They keep their promises. We choose to support the war. One by one, the other races gave their answers. 7 races chose to support Earth's war plan. 3 chose evacuation. 2 smaller races chose to hide and hoped the swarm would not find them. Ancient Mordun was the last to speak. The Elderkin have lived through many threats in our long history. We have seen evil rise and good triumph. We have also seen good people do terrible things in the name of protecting others. He looked directly at Lee. Young human, your plan frightens us. Not because we fear dying in battle, but because we fear what you might become if you win this war. Lee stood up. Honored Ancient, what would you like me to promise you? Promise that if Earth leads this war, you will not become the rulers of the galaxy afterward. Promise that you will give up your weapons when the fighting is over. Promise that humans will not use this war as an excuse to conquer us all. The hall became completely silent. Everyone knew this was the most important moment of the entire meeting. Lee walked to the center speaking area one more time. He looked around at all the alien faces watching him. These beings were trusting him with their lives and the lives of everyone they loved. Honored Ancient, Lee said in a clear, strong voice. I cannot make those promises. Shocked sounds came from all over the hall. Several aliens started to stand up, looking angry or scared. Lee raised his hand. Please, let me explain. I cannot promise that humans will give up our weapons after the war, because we might need those weapons to protect the peace. I cannot promise that Earth will not lead the galaxy because someone has to make the hard decisions that keep evil from rising again. Ancient Mordun looked disappointed. Then you admit that this war is just an excuse for human conquest? No, Lee said firmly. This war is about survival, but what happens after the war is just as important as winning it. He gestured to the images still showing on the big screen. Look again at those 17 dead civilizations. Do you think they were destroyed all at once? Do you think the swarm just appeared one day and consumed entire galaxies? Doctor, Han stood up. I can answer that. My research shows that the swarm attacks in cycles. It destroys a few civilizations, then disappears for hundreds or thousands of years. During that time, the surviving races rebuild and forget about the threat. When the swarm returns, nobody is ready to fight. Lee nodded. This is what the Elderkin fear, and they are right to fear it. If humans become the military leaders of the galaxy, we will have great power. Power can corrupt even good people. He looked directly at Ancient Mordun. But I can make you one promise that matters more than all the others. If Earth leads this war, we will never let the galaxy forget what the swarm was capable of. We will never let the races become so peaceful and trusting that they cannot defend themselves when evil returns. That sounds like you plan to keep us all afraid and militaristic, said Dr. Kelnara. Lee shook his head. Not afraid and militaristic, prepared and realistic. There is a difference. He walked closer to the alien sections. Let me tell you what humans learned from our own history. The most dangerous times come after great victories. When good people win a war, they want to forget about violence and go back to peaceful lives. They want to believe that evil has been defeated forever. Captain Kim stood up. But evil is never defeated forever. It just waits for good people to become weak and unprepared. Lee continued. So here is what I promise. If you let Earth lead this war, we will win it. And after we win, we will make sure that the galaxy never forgets the cost of being unprepared for evil. Ancient Mordun was quiet for a long time. What does that mean in practical terms? It means that every race in the galaxy will maintain some military forces, Lee explained. Not huge armies, but enough to defend themselves. It means we will continue to monitor deep space for threats. It means we will teach your children about the swarm so they know what to watch for if it ever returns. Broker's Impact looked confused. But if every race has military forces, will we not just end up fighting each other like humans did on Earth? Lee smiled sadly. That is the risk. But the alternative is much worse. The alternative is that we all become so peaceful and weak that the next destroyer can consume us easily. He returned to the center of the speaking area. This is what makes humans different from your races. We have never been able to completely forget about war because war never completely forgot about us. Every generation of humans has had to fight some kind of battle to protect what they loved. Dr. Kelnara stood up. So you are saying that humans will be the galaxy's permanent military leaders? Not leaders, Lee corrected. Guardians. There is a difference. High Commander Vextal clicked approvingly. The Krathen understand this difference. Leaders rule, Guardians protect. Lee nodded to the Krathen commander. Exactly. Earth does not want to rule your planets or control your governments. We want to make sure you keep having planets and governments. Ancient Mordun raised his hand. Let us say the Elderkin agree to this plan. What happens if humans become corrupted by power? What happens if Earth decides that being guardians is not enough and tries to become conquerors? Lee looked at all the humans in their section, then back at the ancient Elderkin. Then the rest of the galaxy will have the military forces and knowledge needed to stop us. That is why every race needs to stay strong, not just to fight outside threats like the Swarm, but to keep the Guardians honest. The hall was silent as aliens thought about what Lee had said. There is one more thing, Lee added. Earth will not be the only Guardians. We want the Krathen to help us build and maintain military forces. We want the Villani to help us develop better technology for detecting threats. We want every race to contribute their strengths to galactic defense. He spread his arms wide. This is not about humans controlling everyone else. This is about all of us working together to make sure that builders and creators always have the strength to defend themselves against destroyers and consumers. Sujin stood up suddenly. She looked embarrassed but determined. May I say something? Lee nodded to her. Of course. Sujin walked to the speaking area. She was much smaller than Lee and looked nervous, but her voice was clear. I have worked with Ambassador Lee for 5 years. I have seen him make hard decisions. I have seen him choose to do difficult things because they were right, not because they were easy. She looked around the hall. Humans are not perfect. We make mistakes. We can be stubborn and violent. But I have never seen a human leader choose personal power over protecting innocent people. Ancient Morden listened carefully. What makes you so certain? Sujin smiled slightly. Because I argue with the ambassador all the time. So do Captain Kim and Dr. Han and every other human in our government. If Ambassador Lee ever tried to become a dictator, we would stop him ourselves. Several aliens made sounds that might have been laughter. Lee put his hand on Sujin's shoulder. She is right. Humans have a saying, power corrupts, but absolute power corrupts absolutely. That is why human governments have many people checking on each other. Nobody gets to make all the decisions alone. He looked at Ancient Mordun. If the galaxy agrees to let Earth lead this war, we will set up the same kind of system for galactic defense. Multiple races checking on each other. Decisions made by groups, not individuals. Power shared, not concentrated. 6 months later, Lee stood on the command bridge of the Earth battleship Indomitable. Through the large windows, he could see the combined galactic fleet spread out across space like a metal constellation. 800 human ships formed the center of the formation. Around them, the allied fleets of 8 different races created a fighting force larger than anything the galaxy had ever assembled. But in the distance, something much larger was approaching. Contact report, announced Commander Kim from his station. Void Swarm main fleet detected at the edge of sensor range. Estimated strength, 12,000 vessels. The number was even worse than their worst predictions. Lee felt his stomach drop, but he kept his expression calm. On the bridge around him, human and alien officers worked together at control stations. The integration of different races into unified combat teams had taken months of training, but it was finally working. Admiral Park, what is our status? Lee asked. Admiral Park Jinwoo, now commander of the entire galactic fleet, checked his displays. All ships report ready for combat. Starfall weapons are armed and targeted. Allied fleets are in position. Lee nodded and opened a communication channel to the entire fleet. His voice would now be heard by over 500,000 beings from 9 different worlds. Ships of the Galactic Fleet, Lee began. 6 months ago, many of you did not believe this day would come. You hoped the swarm would change its mind or find easier targets or simply disappear back into the darkness between galaxies. He paused and looked out at the approaching enemy fleet. The swarm ships were unlike anything in their galaxy. They looked more like living creatures than machines, with curved surfaces that seemed to flow like liquid metal. But hope alone cannot stop an enemy that wants to erase every trace of your existence. Today we fight not just for our planets or our governments, but for our right to exist at all. On the tactical display, the swarm fleet was spreading out into attack formation. It was larger than many solar systems. Dr. Shin's voice came over the communication system from the weapons control center. All ships, Starfall torpedoes are ready for first salvo. Targeting solutions confirmed. Lee took a deep breath. Everything they had planned and prepared for came down to the next few minutes. Fleet command to all vessels, Admiral Park announced. Execute attack pattern Prometheus. All ships, fire when ready. The space around the Galactic fleet lit up with thousands of weapon discharges. The Starfall torpedoes were invisible to normal sensors, but Lee could track them on the tactical display as tiny dots racing toward the massive enemy formation. For 30 seconds, nothing seemed to happen. The swarm fleet continued its approach, apparently unaware of the incoming weapons. Then the first torpedo reached its target. The explosion was unlike anything Lee had ever seen. Instead of the bright flash of normal weapons, the Starfall torpedo created a sphere of absolute darkness that expanded through the enemy formation. Every swarm ship it touched simply vanished, not destroyed, but completely unmade at the quantum level. More torpedoes reached their targets. Dark spheres appeared throughout the swarm fleet, each one erasing dozens of enemy vessels. In less than 2 minutes, nearly half of the swarm's ships had been destroyed. Direct hit, reported Dr. Shin. Starfall weapons are performing exactly as designed, but the celebration was short-lived. The remaining swarm ships did not retreat or hesitate. Instead, they accelerated toward the Galactic fleet with frightening speed. Enemy fleet is closing fast, announced Commander Kim. They will be in conventional weapons range in 4 minutes. Admiral Park began giving rapid orders. All ships prepare for close combat. Krathan vessels, move to forward positions. Villani ships, begin electronic warfare operations. Human ships, prepare second Starfall salvo. Lee watched the tactical display as 6,000 surviving swarm ships rushed toward their much smaller fleet. Even after losing half their numbers, the enemy still outnumbered them 6-1. Sir, Sujin said from her station, the swarm ships are not behaving like we expected. They should have retreated after taking such heavy losses. She was right. Every computer simulation had predicted that the swarm would withdraw after losing 40% of their fleet. Instead, they seemed more aggressive than before. Commander Nam, monitoring enemy communications, looked up from his station. I am detecting some kind of signal from the swarm ships. It is not a language, but it might be. He paused, looking confused. Sir, I think they are excited. The signal patterns suggest enthusiasm. Lee felt a chill run down his spine. They are not afraid of our weapons. They are interested in them. The horrible truth hit him all at once. The swarm had not come to this galaxy just to consume it. They had come because they knew about the Starfall weapons. Somehow, they had learned that this galaxy had developed technology they wanted to study and absorb. All ships, Lee announced on the fleet communication channel. Be advised that the enemy may be more dangerous than anticipated. They are not retreating because they want to capture our technology, not just destroy us. The first swarm ships entered weapons range and opened fire. Their weapons were nothing like the energy beams or missiles that galactic races used. Instead, they fired streams of something that looked like liquid shadow. When these streams hit Allied ships, the vessels began to dissolve from the outside in. Swarm weapons are some kind of molecular disassembler, reported Dr. Shin. They are literally taking our ships apart atom by atom. 3 Krathan vessels disappeared under the enemy fire. 2 Vylani ships managed to escape, but their hulls were partially dissolved. The reality of fighting the swarm was even worse than their worst fears. All ships, evasive maneuvers, Admiral Park ordered. Do not let those weapons touch you. The space battle became a deadly dance. The Galactic fleet used their superior speed and maneuverability to stay away from the swarm's dissolving weapons. The human ships fired their remaining starfall torpedoes whenever they could get clear shots, but the swarm was learning. After the first few starfall hits, the enemy ships began spreading out more, making each torpedo less effective. They also started using some kind of defensive field that could deflect the quantum weapons. "They are adapting to our tactics faster than we anticipated," reported General Yu from the Tactical Center. "We need to change our approach." Lee made a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his life. "All ships close to melee range use conventional weapons and ramming attacks. We cannot let them adapt to all of our weapons at once." The Galactic fleet charged directly into the swarm formation. What followed was the most violent space battle in galactic history. Ships from both sides crashed into each other at tremendous speeds. The vacuum of space filled with debris, energy discharges, and the twisted remains of vessels from 9 different civilizations. The Krathen fought with particular fury, using their ships like giant hammers to smash into swarm vessels. The Villani coordinated their attacks with mathematical precision, striking at weak points in the enemy formation. The Nexari used their trading ships' cargo bays to deploy thousands of smaller fighter craft. But it was the humans who showed the galaxy what total war really meant. Captain Kim's ship Defiance rammed directly into a swarm command vessel 3 times its size. The collision destroyed both ships, but it created a gap in the enemy formation that allowed 20 other Allied vessels to escape destruction. Commander Nam's intelligence ship Shadow used stealth technology to get inside the swarm fleet and detonate its entire ammunition supply, taking out dozens of enemy vessels in a massive explosion. Dr. Shin, working from the weapons lab on Indomitable, modified the remaining Starfall weapons in real time to overcome the swarm's new defenses. Her innovation saved hundreds of Allied ships. The battle raged for 6 hours. By the end, both fleets were devastated. Of the original Galactic fleet of 4,000 ships, only 800 remained operational. But the swarm had been reduced to fewer than 2,000 vessels. More importantly, the surviving swarm ships were retreating. "Enemy fleet is withdrawing to the edge of the system," reported Admiral Park. "They appear to be regrouping." Lee studied the tactical display. The swarm ships were not fleeing in panic. They were conducting an organized withdrawal, maintaining formation and covering each other's retreat. Commander Nam looked up from his station. "Sir, I am detecting new signals from the enemy fleet. The patterns are different now. Less aggressive, more analytical." "They are processing what they learned from this battle," Lee realized. "They will be back, and next time they will be ready for our weapons and tactics." Ancient Mordune's voice came over the communication channel from his damaged ship. "Human leader, we have won this battle. Should we not celebrate our victory?" Lee looked out at the debris field that had once been thousands of ships and millions of living beings. "Honored Ancient, this was not a victory. This was a test. We passed, but barely." He opened a channel to the entire surviving fleet. "All ships, this battle is over, but the war continues. The swarm now knows our capabilities and weaknesses. They will return with better preparations and new strategies." Sujin approached Lee at his command station. "Sir, what do we do now?" Lee thought about the choice he was about to offer the galaxy. It was not a choice between war and peace anymore.